Hello everyone, in this video we're going to be exploring the ideas on how we can trade Bitcoin from a top-down analysis. I think it's a good time to get a good refresher on where we stand on the macro as well, as you can see here on the CME one-day time frame. But first things first, congratulations to everyone. We breached the all-time highs. That was a major expectation we ever had since our lows from $49,000, and we even had a weekly close above it just moments ago at all-time highs. But again, we want to remain neutral as possible. This is a zero-sum game after all. Many shorts did get liquidated, and eventually I believe we will have the better for the worse as well, where longs will get liquidated and shorts will start taking the ball as well in the court. So let's dive into the analysis. Let's go over the possible scenarios for where Bitcoin might head and what pullbacks might occur along the way. That's a key question for everyone right now. And since we are in price discovery, there's only so much we can do with the data available given. Once you reach all these all-time highs and price discovery, it gets quite tricky. I still, however, do believe that we are in the final conclusion for this wave 5 for this bull market, meaning that we are going to expect a larger pullback. How far this wave 5 goes is going to be what we're going to be examining throughout the weeks and months. Whether you want to call that pullback, eventual pullback rather, a bear market, either way, I still believe we are in store for a larger pullback once we lure in everyone, including your grandma who's thinking of buying Bitcoin at these levels. And now, starting off with the highest of the time frames on the CME chart, like I mentioned, I still think that we are in that wave 5 to the upside. One important thing that the CME chart that can help us understand where pullbacks might occur along the way is the idea of CME gaps. They are a very useful tool and one piece of evidence, especially when you are in price discovery. We have a new CME gap formed, and usually these are 99% statistically accurate in terms of them being filled eventually on the one-day time frame, not the 4-hour, not the 1 hour, the one-day time frame. Usually, if it is larger than $1,000 gap, they are significant enough for the gaps to be eventually filled. So we have around a $3,000 to $4,000 gap right here. I didn't measure it, but we do have a significant larger of a gap that can give us an idea of where support might happen. And if we continue up, that is going to be acting as a magnet in terms of where the pullback could occur. So once we do have a gap, either to the downside, we're eventually going to fill that gap, even though we are maybe increasing in price. I still think that this is a level that is going to be a significant interest for the bears as well. So that's something to keep in mind. That's why, again, we have to remain neutral, especially in from a top-down analysis. But again, just keeping everything simple and in gentle form, we're looking for this fifth wave to complete as the ultimate and target no matter what. So zooming in, what we can get out of the current data, I've been talking about the possible idea. The only real way that I can find it to get into that wave 5 target is seeing this as a possible 1-2-1-2-1-2 structure. It's a nested idea. We've been exploring this impulse idea with a series of nested 1-2s for some time. And we've also been able to rule out or dismiss the diagonal idea early on, or different forms of ways we can go up with different patterns given to us from the Elliott Wave toolbox, especially as more people started to adopt it. We were definitely making progress and choosing the right detour, and we eventually picked this detour as the possible route. So as with any analysis, though, we need to stay objective, questioning the pump as much as we're also enjoying it. So what we have here for the first scenario is the idea of the most ambitious bullish case, which is where we are now working in the expansion phase. We're finally transitioning into that expansion phase. We're talking about how to create the accumulation phase, but we are now what could be possibly the expansion phase. Now, there's a few ways how to interpret this expansion phase, because again, we are in price discovery. We really don't know where the pullbacks are going to occur. But as I mentioned, that our ultimate target is around $80,000 to $100,000 as our conservative target. And we are finally entering that zone of the lower spectrum where we can start discussing whether a real continuation occurs or not. But we got to take it step by step. So with this nested 1-2 idea, to simply put, as you start to build these 1-2s off of the lows, we are looking for the final expansion phase of the 3-4-5s now, where we're going to have a shallow wave 4 pullback for each respective degrees. And again, of course, wave 3s are going to be extremely parabolic in nature. And then with each respective hierarchy of degrees, we're creating these series of 3-4-5s, 3-4-5s, and 3-4-5s, eventually to create that larger degree of wave 5 that I showed you on that larger time frame on the CME chart. And then that will conclude the higher degree wave 5 to conclude, to eventually finish off the larger wave 5 of the main trend on the macro. If we're finally working in that expansion phase, we may now be in the works for finally the wave 3 of the primary degree in this yellow circle. So that's really the only way we can see it. I am not seeing any significant signs of a larger 1-2 of a nested structure as we are creating it, where we might just now starting to be working really parabolically to the upside for that wave 3 to the upside. But again, what if there is a pullback possible scenario? There's always going to be a possibility. Now, this is just all theoretical in nature. We're just working with what we have. Again, we have the first kind of structure or the puzzle being already built, where we have the first series of 1-2s being built. Again, the idea is just working on the idea of the 3, 4, 5s. Everything else in between is just noise. And that's the key point here, ladies and gentlemen. I think a lot of people, even though they may profit so much off the lows, usually they'll get chopped up here because they're trying to eventually find a top at price discovery. So what we have here is just kind of a theoretical approach on that we are now working for the expansion phase. This is the first idea. Now, the second idea is a little bit more creative in terms of what we can talk about in terms of a real significant pullback and kind of mounting a lot of the evidence as much as we can, is the idea of that CME gap first. We do have that CME gap below us. And secondly is kind of reorganizing the internal structures with the current data given. So if we're removing some of the hierarchy of degrees, especially now, it's important because we want to remove the subjectivity of having too many 1-2s being created. That is usually unfavored by many Elliott Wave analysts, is that we could now remove this degree here as a 1-2 and just replace the internal structure with a 5-way move going into a wave 3, 4, 5. Now, there is going to be a problem with this idea as well. No idea is going to be perfect, but it's just mounting the evidence from a different perspective. So with that being said, nothing has changed here on the highest degree of this wave 1-2. And now instead, we have this 1-2. And instead of having this as a new 1-2, where we're working in a higher expansion phase, or a quicker expansion phase rather, is that this is now treated as the wave 3. And then this is treated as a wave 4, right? So these are hybrid waves where we're just kind of replacing in between the internal waves, and we're kind of replacing these waves and just kind of working with what we have in terms of the expectations of a possible pullback now. So if that's the case, this idea is that we are now completed with this possible 5th wave move to the upside. Now, there's a problem here, like I said. This wave 3 is relatively short. Now, it's already shorter than this wave 1. Now, if you guys are not familiar with the Elliott Wave rules and guidelines, wave 3 is typically going to be the longest, but it can't be the shortest wave, meaning that if this wave 3 is shorter than this wave 1, this wave 5 must be shorter than this wave 3. So to simply put it, if the wave 3 is shorter than this wave 1, it also has to be larger than the wave 5. Right? It can't be the other way around. You can't have a wave 3 that's going to be the shortest, where wave 5 is eventually going to be longer than this wave 3. So that's why that's pretty much the only downfall to this current count, that we have to really complete this move here. And if we do have, well, we do have pretty much good evidence that there could be a significant pullback here, relative again. We are looking for a possible wave 4 of this degree here, and this could be that wave 5 eventually coming as the target as well. So we're going to be looking for some kind of distribution above this all-time high, fill that CME gap, get that resistance turned into support, and see how it reacts off of that all-time high once again. And then that could be that wave 4 being built eventually. It could be any corrected pattern. It could be a triangle. It could be a flat. It could really be anything. But again, this idea of having the all-time high and then the idea of the CME gap also just right below us can also be an idea that we could be looking for a possible pullback. So I wouldn't be surprised if we did a pullback here, but it does get tricky because the shorter time frames is really, really difficult to count right now. It's pretty much impossible to really know which side of things we're going to be going, but I've done my best. Again, if this is the 3-4 that's complete, like I said, same idea here, then this move here has to be completed as a 5-wave move, right? And that wave 5 of this degree here is now nearing completion. So if we are still working in this 5-wave move, I would say we are pretty darn close to being completed. And in fact, it has to be complete because I've already discussed that this wave 3 has to be longer than this wave 5. And this wave 5, although we do have a 5-wave impulse here, it's getting quite tricky. It's starting to look very close to invalidating that length and requirement against this wave 3, where it has to be shorter than this wave 3. But with that being said, it's not set in stone just yet. We still do have a technical validation right here for this wave 5. We do have a pretty clean 5-way move to the upside. Now, the best way I can count this, it's so messy in between, where this move here is treated as the wave 1, 2. This move here was very tricky because we didn't create a technical low here for this possible diagonal here. Now, this is what I consider to be a market inefficiency. So we either have to label this as the diagonal, where this is kind of breaking through the price action, or we're treating this market inefficiency where even though it didn't create a technical low, it's possibly just a truncated move here. And then that move alone is a 3-way move up for that final subwave 3. Now, wave 3s again cannot be the diagonal in itself. This is a wave 3, 4, and then this is the 5th of that wave 3. So we're treating this 5th wave as a very extended kind of accumulative ending diagonal. Then we have this wave 3, 4. There's nothing to argue about that. It looks like a 3-wave move. This is where it gets tricky. We have a possible diagonal being built here. We don't know exactly how this diagonal is going to be complete, but we are finding some pretty strong overlaps right now as we speak. If we get out of here, then we're just going to have to work with the expansion phase. It's just how it is. That's the main bullish idea, where instead of that 3, 4, we're still just working in this series of 1, 2s. And right now, this is the only way I can count it. So we have, instead of that 3, 4 being here, we have this that has the smallest degree of a wave 1, 2. So if we go back to the impulse idea, this is how it would play out, where we would have a major impulse to the upside, and we're just working parabolically. Someone on Twitter mentioned the banana phase of the EW phase, where it's shaped as a banana. I kind of like that idea. So I'm going to call this EW phase as the banana phase, where we're just working in a banana-shaped form or a parabolic form to the upside. So that's how this idea would play out, the banana phase. And then this idea here, again, we're looking for that pullback. So we want to be seeing how this move here concludes, and that is the only way I can see it, where we have now possibly a 5-way move to the upside, which has a relatively good look, arguably. And this move here is now just starting to come to a conclusion. And we are now going to be looking for what kind of actionary wave, especially how strong of an impulse it will be to the downside. Will that be the first creation of a wave A, and then a B, and then a C to the downside, which will eventually retest that all-time high and also fill that CME gap? Perfect. That would fit into the narrative as well. So that's how I would see those two scenarios, ladies and gentlemen. So make sure to go back and watch this video again. And I think if we had to choose one specific scenario, at this point, since it is in price discovery, I'm not sure exactly. I would weight this as a 50-50 probability, but if you had a gun pointed to my head and say, choose one idea, I'd probably go with this idea where we're going to be looking for a larger pullback, relative again, in this current degree. I would say we're going to be at least coming down and retesting the all-time highs. If not, I wouldn't be surprised because we're already well positioned to the upside anyways. So that is the dilemma for the bears, because now they want to be maximizing their position and efficiency of getting into a position. But as a bull, you're just kind of figuring out where you want to maximize your DCA position. That's the best way we can kind of interpret the price action. So again, if I had a gun pointed to my head, you know, just Russian roulette, I would probably just choose this impulsive route that's now been complete, and we're working for a possible pullback. But if not, the nested 1-2 idea just continues on and it lives on. That's the only way I can see it, where this wave 1-2 is now deemed as a flat idea. So hopefully that was helpful. I will make sure to have more updates. Happy Monday. Hope everyone has a fantastic rest of the week. I will have more updates in Discord and also on Patreon. Thank you very much. If you guys are interested, the links are in the description below. I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a fantastic rest of the week. Bye-bye.